What a pleasure to introduce Dr. Sean Grondin today, the president of the Society of Thoracic Surgeons. It's been a great pleasure to work with Sean over the past few years, and I can tell you we've had such a wonderful president and leader through such difficult times. He always seemed to know right where the puck would be, and as a Canadian and a hockey player, he knew right where we should be going. This didn't come by accident. Sean's the product of a strong family. His father, Conde, or Con Grondin, and his mother, Deidre, or Dee Grondin, both were graduates of Dalhousie, and both were really instrumental in Sean's life and teaching him the values and the principles that he's displayed for the rest of his life. His thoracic surgery was started with Dr. Drew Bethune in Dalhousie, who was a wonderful mentor and leader and teacher, and convinced Sean when he finished general surgery to go and join Dr. Griff Pearson in the bottom left, where he went. But before he did this, he was a young resident walking back and forth in a quiet hallway where a nursing grad student, Kathy, was working. And he apparently never looked at her, according to Kathy. She finally asked if she could help him, and sure enough, she has for the rest of her life. He's been very fortunate to be married to her and to have two fine children and a great family. More about them a little later. After a great residency with Dr. Pearson, he went to join Dr. Sugarbaker, who we lost too soon, but David, as everyone knows, was a resident with Dr. Pearson about 10 years before, and Sean went to join him at the Brigham and at Harvard. And during the time when he was a resident working full on at Dr. Sugarbaker's very demanding service, he also picked up a master's in public health with a concentration in clinical effectiveness, something that's just incredible when you think about it. He was able to convince Kathy and their banker to spend yet one more year away with Dr. Jim Lukatich, where he went to Pittsburgh and learned some of the innovative techniques that Jim was developing a little over 2 decades ago. Subsequent to this, he went on to Chicago, where he worked for a couple of years with Bill Fry and Mike Liptay as a general thoracic surgeon before being recruited to Calgary to join their faculty as a thoracic surgeon and an academic one. So that's a little about his career, but Sean started off as a very precocious, handsome little fella. You see in the middle there, he's with his older sister, who is quite the professional herself, and his younger sister in the picture on the right, as well as his mother, Dee, and then with his parents upon graduation. But a little about his academic career early. He started elementary school a year early. He skipped the 3rd grade. He went through college in 3 years and then medical school in 3 years. So by the time he graduated, he was maybe still a teenager. So quite the precocious and talented young man. But despite all that, and despite being a little younger than his peers, Sean was quite an athlete. Here you can see in the middle circle picture, he was a member of the national champion soccer team and was the MVP as a goalie. So Sean was quite an athlete. I don't have pictures of him playing hockey, but hockey and soccer, much like many people from Canada, are 2 of his passions to this day. The fella in the bottom left is his son, Ben, who graduated also from Dalhousie and now is pursuing a law degree, and his daughter, Kate, who graduates this summer, who's doing excellent work and is pursuing further graduate education herself. So quite the Dalhousie devotee and quite the family man and quite the athlete. He's an outdoorsman. His father gave him a love of fishing. You can see there on the left with some smaller Sean Grondin and smaller fish, and you can see him here on the right as a little larger Sean Grondin with a little larger fish. Well, Kathy's the glue that held everything together. And Kathy, since they got married, has run the Grondin financial empire, the Grondin Academic Thoracic Surgical Enterprise, and the Grondin Family Unit with strong help from Sean. It might be important to know that aside from what Kathy's done, Sean found time to coach both boys and girls soccer teams and hockey teams during his busy academic career. And just as he was a coach, he hasn't missed out on too many sweets. You can see him here with Kate devouring a chocolate-covered cheesecake, with Ben hitting an ice cream cone, with Kate on a macaroon, his wife, and then him, the cookie monster himself, finding something sweet at a pop-up store. So family is really important. You can see some wonderful pictures of Sean throughout the development of his family. You can see what a great family it is, and something he's extremely proud of, as is Kathy. But again, he's an academic guy. On the top left is his thoracic surgery partners, but it does not show just what he did the last 5 years. Aside from those partners, he had 450 surgeons that reported to him as chief of surgery at Calgary's provincial unit, 1,000 reports all in all. You can see the thoracic park. You can see the ever-present sweets and the donuts that Sean's apparently fond of. And you can see he got the team out for a little exercise, both some 8-ounce curls and some pedal work as they navigated themselves around somewhere in Canada on this bike. So I give you a guy who's been extremely proficient, a great family guy, loves the outdoors, quite the athlete. But I haven't quite finished the story. He's a regent of the American College of Surgeons. He's held leadership roles in every Canadian thoracic surgical enterprise, his own local enterprises, and educational enterprises. So quite the proficient guy. It's a pleasure to introduce and to hear what Dr. Grondin, an esteemed leader and a great friend and person to all of us, is going to say. And so from north of our border, it's a pleasure to give you the great one, Dr. Sean Grondin, the STS President, 2021-2022. Thank you and welcome to Sean's address.
Thank you, Dr. Calhoun, for that wonderful introduction. It has been my privilege to work with you in your capacity as First Vice President. Your calm and thoughtful leadership has been a great support to me during my presidency. I sincerely thank you for your guidance and assistance this past year. I'd like to welcome all of you again to the Society of Thoracic Surgeons annual meeting. Although it has been disappointing that we could not meet in person in Miami, I am so pleased with the high-quality virtual conference our STS staff and volunteer physician leaders have been able to put together on such short notice. I'd like to begin now by acknowledging a few of the many who made this meeting possible and who have worked so hard within the STS organization this past year. First of all, I'd like to recognize the efforts of the entire 85-person-strong STS staff who supported the organization and its many initiatives so well, especially as they continue to work from home in 2021. Included in this group are the dedicated staff leads and personnel shown on this slide. I cannot imagine this past year without your support. Thank you. I'd also like to give a special shout out and thank you to the STS meetings and education staff led by Scott Bradbury, Vice President of Education, and Colleen Donahoe, Vice President of Meetings and Conventions, as well as the Chair of the Workforce on Annual Meeting, Dr. John Mitchell, and the Workforce Committee members for arranging this meeting. What a great job you've done. Congratulations. You've taken the art of the pivot, a word I hope we can retire in 2022, to the next level. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the senior STS staff leaders, Senior Vice Presidents Graham Rush and Bill Seward, and our distinguished CEO and Executive Director, Elaine Weiss. I cannot overstate how well Elaine, Graham, and Bill have supported me and the organization this past year. You were all exceptional in helping STS navigate several challenging issues by providing insightful advice on how best to manage complex problems. Elaine and I were in contact several times a week, and it was a huge support to me knowing she was always at the ready to dive in as we waded through the many issues which arose over the course of the year. The STS is very fortunate to have such a hardworking and talented staff. Now, as Dr. Calhoun mentioned, I live in Calgary, Alberta, a beautiful city about a 3-hour drive north of the Montana border and an hour east of the Rocky Mountains. I'm a proud Canadian and have lived and worked in the eastern, central, and western regions of this great nation. Seeing that some of you may be more familiar with Canada than others, I thought I might share a few perhaps little known and likely useless bits of Canadian trivia. For instance, some may assume our national sport is hockey. It is not. It is lacrosse. Who invented basketball? A Canadian. We the North for you NBA followers out there. As well, for those of you who love pancakes like I do, Canada produces 80% of the world's maple syrup supply. In fact, we take maple syrup so seriously that we have reserves which can last up to 2 years. So anyone concerned about the current state of the supply chain, do not worry, Canada has your back. Although I am deeply honored to be the first Canadian General Thoracic Surgery STS president, I am not the first STS president from Canada. This distinction goes to Dr. Anthony Dobell, a cardiac surgeon from McGill University in Montreal, who was STS president from 1981 to 1982. Dr. Dobell was an outstanding leader whose presidential talk entitled The Human Touch is perhaps particularly relevant today with our current challenges in providing high quality and compassionate care in the time of COVID. And finally, the last bit of Canadian trivia comes with a nod to my friend and colleague, Dr. Shaf Kashavji, who is currently serving as AATS president. So I guess one might say this has been in some ways the year of the Canuck for both the STS and AATS. So as I began the process of deciding what to talk to you about today, I was reminded of STS President Dr. Keith Nonheim's address, during which he acknowledged that finding a good topic of broad interest that hadn't already been presented at a meeting is no easy feat. In discussion with Dr. Nonheim about this conundrum, he wished me luck and left me with the following words of wisdom. Put a few Latin words into the title and you'll be fine. Another person I spoke with was Dr. John Calhoun. He said, Sean, you've been writing your presidential address your entire life. You'll be fine. I was not sure where to go with that advice, but as I thought about it, Dr. Calhoun's Yoda-like wisdom became apparent and inspired me to focus on one aspect of my career that has been a constant. That is, the evolving process of finding career fit by understanding my own metrics of success and satisfaction. Or in Latin, just in case, finding fit, intelligentes concilium victoria et satisfactionis. So my objective in this presentation is to share with you some personal experiences and ideas related to this concept of fit that are meaningful to me, and with the hope that they will resonate with you. I would like to start by telling a personal story of how this idea of fit and its relationship to success and satisfaction presented itself to me early in my career. My introduction to the concept of professional fit came in my first job as an attending thoracic surgeon at Evanston Northwestern Healthcare near Chicago. It was a great job and I was joining a strong team with a skilled surgeon just a few years ahead of me in practice, Dr. Mike Lipday, and senior surgeon Dr. Bill Fry, who would provide the mentorship I was looking for in my first staff position. We were responsible for 2 hospitals and were very busy clinically. About a year into the job, the delivery structure changed and 3 additional hospitals were added to our roster. The flow of the day and interactions with patients and teams felt very different to me. I knew the structure was sound as we were providing excellent care. I also knew of many surgeons working in similar situations quite successfully. It just didn't feel good to me. And I was quick to conclude the problem, therefore, had to be me. This immediately led to feelings of, can I not handle this? Am I not working hard enough? Am I not able to adapt? Am I failing? Over time, despite my best efforts, the new situation was taking a toll. After many sleepless nights, we made the difficult decision to leave Chicago. I had accepted that something was wrong, and I figured it was me. I felt that I had failed. It was during my exit interview with Department Head Dr. David Winchester that my perspective began to shift. During this interview, Dr. Winchester, while expressing disappointment that I was leaving, also commended me. In his words, "Congratulations, you have learned in 2 years what it takes many surgeons a whole career to figure out." Although the full measure of what he was saying took some time to sink in, his comments immediately validated for me that I had made the right decision. Maybe, yes, it was me, but perhaps it was not a failure. Perhaps I was beginning to learn what brought me satisfaction in my work and what caused dissatisfaction. His conversation also laid the foundation for further reflections on this idea of fit. It is a conversation I've come back to many times throughout my career as various opportunities and challenges have arisen. The lesson I took from that conversation may seem pretty basic, and it is. It can look good on paper and tick all the boxes. You can be doing the job well. You can be a strong member of a strong team. It can all look good from the outside. But if it doesn't feel right, it likely isn't, because fit is different for each of us. In large part because satisfaction, whatever that means to you, must be added to all the measures of success that we know so well. Perhaps the most important impact Dr. Winchester's words to me that day was that it released me from that sense that I had failed. It did take a while to fully shake that feeling. We are conditioned to think that we should be able to adapt and handle anything. But I believe had I carried that sense of failure with me from such an early point in my career, the impact would have been significant. As I look back to that time, I see that I was beginning to separate the ideas of success and satisfaction in my mind. I drew from this experience when co-editing a book on how to build a successful career in thoracic surgery with Dr. Griff Pearson in 2011. In developing the chapters for this book, I reached out to key leaders in the field of cardiothoracic surgery to get their opinions on several topics. One of the chapters, Advice from Leaders in Thoracic Surgery, was particularly enlightening to me. In this article, Dr. Carolyn Reed provided a definition of what I believe is at the core of every clinical caregiver's definition of success. To quote Dr. Reed, "My success in thoracic surgery will always be embedded in my clinical work. Caring for the patient is the bedrock of medicine. Each patient's thanks, hug, or letter is a measure of a successful career. Everyone is capable of this measure of success." Also in this article, contributor Dr. Mark Ferguson provided another broader definition of success. Success in a career, he wrote, is more easily measured and tends to have more similarities across individuals in the same profession. Are you respected by your colleagues, coworkers, and patients? Is the work you do important? Do you have good outcomes? Are you contributing to the science of your specialty? Just because success can easily be measured, he says, does not mean it is easy to achieve. Following those pathways is often difficult, and success is by no means guaranteed. In many instances, academic surgeons follow one or more of the well-established paths of education, leadership, or research. After all, promotion criteria at most institutions emphasize having significant contributions in one or more of these areas in order to be promoted. As difficult as measures of success may be to attain in each of these pathways, I feel that we, as CT surgeons, are comfortable with them. We understand them. We are prepared to set goals and work toward them. We got to where we are by doing exactly that, and we know the success when we see it. Achieving satisfaction, however, presents a very different challenge. Perhaps we just assume or hope that success encompasses satisfaction, or that satisfaction is a natural byproduct of success. Early in my career, I think I made these assumptions, but I no longer think this is the case. Many surgeons achieve success in their careers without ever being truly satisfied, either personally or professionally. So how is satisfaction different from success? There are many definitions of satisfaction. The one that encompasses the idea best to me is the following from the well-known medical info source, Wikipedia. Satisfaction is a measure of well-being assessed in terms of mood, satisfaction with relationships, achieved goals, self-concepts, and self-perceived ability to cope with one's daily life. Much of what leads to these feelings of well-being and favorable attitudes is uniquely personal, and we have our own levels of self-awareness in this regard. Often surgeons are faced with challenging decisions that affect career success and satisfaction in opposing ways. Finding that unique personal balance can be difficult. I know that measures of satisfaction can be seen as the soft stuff, and heaven knows surgeons love the soft stuff. But the more years I have lived, the more I realize that a lot of life is the soft stuff. Members of our profession typically have the more easily measured hard stuff down. Achieving, goal setting, next rung on the ladder, next paper, another hour in the day, another case, better outcomes, better care, striving. And all of this can be wonderful and incredibly rewarding. But if it isn't tempered with a healthy dose of your own personal formula for what brings you joy and satisfaction, there could be trouble ahead. This brings us to fit. In my view, fit can be best defined as finding your unique formula of success and satisfaction blended together. Although we rarely fail to evaluate a position against the measures of how it might lead to success, I'm not sure we are so careful in assessing the softer measures of what bring us satisfaction. We can all adjust, adapt, tolerate for a time, but fit requires satisfaction eventually. Seems like common sense, and it is. But I can't tell you how many physicians I have known who continue on in positions they themselves refer to as soul-sucking. But they are doing a good job, outcomes are good, financial reward is good, and perhaps they are moving up the ladder. It is all good, except for that soul-sucking part. It is important to note that the way we approach fit will likely be different at various stages of our career. In our early careers, of course, we do not always have the luxury of fit. We may need to take more risks, accommodate, and adjust, often accepting that your situation might not be the perfect fit, but you are working toward that fit. I would suggest that in those early years, it is about paying attention to what is satisfying in your life, both personally and professionally, and gaining an increasing appreciation of yourself and what you need to achieve both success and satisfaction so that you can be ready when the right opportunity presents. As our careers evolve, we gain confidence, refine our skills, perhaps financial considerations don't weigh quite as heavily. You would think this would give us a luxury of refining fit, making calculated moves more carefully to maximize both success and satisfaction, and I believe it does. However, this may also be a time where we have become less flexible. We have invested a lot of time and energy into reaching a certain place in our career. Or perhaps it is a time when expectations have grown and you are on a path where next steps seem to have been laid out for you. Is this a good place? Well, that depends on you and your metrics of success and satisfaction. But finding out does require that we ask the question, is this a good fit for me? It is at this stage that some of us may be vulnerable to the pressures that stem from the expectation of others and our own expectations of ourselves that may be influenced by how success is often defined within our profession. I think you can get stuck on this success ladder, always trying to move forward. Often we are told, do not make lateral moves. I've heard it and I've said it. But when personal satisfaction is added to that formula, perhaps it is not such a lateral move. So for some, the next rung on the ladder may present a great opportunity. But just because it is advancing you on some metrics of success does not necessarily mean it is a good fit. I'd like to now share a more recent experience that illustrates how achieving that magic formula of success and satisfaction can remain challenging even later in our careers. In 2016, I began my tenure as chair of the Department of Surgery in Calgary. I recognized before applying that this was a big job with many challenges. I'd be overseeing 450 surgeons in 13 divisions at 8 hospitals. I was wanting a change and a challenge, and this position fit the bill on both counts. As I started the job, I adjusted my clinical FTE so that I could dedicate the correct amount of time to my new administrative role. I enjoyed much of the job and the wins were exciting. It was a whole new arena and I was managing the learning curve well. It was a good fit and I had made the right decision in taking the position. A few years in, we had a change in government leading to a fairly dramatic change in resource allocation and, to a certain extent, the philosophy towards the delivery of healthcare. Now, managing change is a constant as a department head. For me, it was part of what made the job interesting. However, a government change in a publicly funded healthcare system transforms the landscape significantly. With that change, my level of satisfaction began to decline. But despite what I learned from my experience in Chicago, I focused not on my satisfaction with the job, but rather on the metrics of success. I doubled down. I worked harder to balance the needs of the government, university, department members, and staff, as well as the patients. My days went from 10 to 12 to 14 hours. I found a way to be successful in the new landscape. There was a problem, though. The responsibilities of the position that brought so much satisfaction, such as working towards strategic goals and effectively supporting department members in achieving their priorities, had changed dramatically. And my time for those things that brought me satisfaction was fading further and further into the background. Now, most department heads in Calgary do the job for 2 5-year terms. In the final year of my first term, I knew I was at a crossroads. Should I sign up for another 5 years of this again? Of course I should. People expected that of me. To not do so would be giving up. I was getting the job done, so power through. I'm not sure what happened in the spring of 2020. Maybe it was the beginning of COVID and my family being home all under one roof again. But whatever it was, everything came into focus at that time. I could see it pretty clearly. I was successful and very dissatisfied. So I looked for a solution. Could I adjust some of the job parameters, how I approached the position, get more support, basically do more of what I had been doing the last year, adapt, adjust, and work harder. In the end, however, this Steve Jobs quote proved true. When you first start off trying to solve a problem, the first solutions you come up with are very complex, and most people stop there. But if you keep going and live with the problem and peel more layers of the onion off, you can oftentimes arrive at some very elegant and simple solutions. It became clear that the elegant and simple solution was that this was the time to move on. I was out of alignment, the formula was off. I was increasingly disliking the job. It would be a mistake to just push through and renew as department head. Now, there are many potential consequences of disliking your job or having the wrong fit. For some, it might have negative health consequences such as weight gain from stress eating or lack of exercise. You may also be at risk of major illness such as hypertension or heart disease, and your mental health will suffer. Stress leads to irritability and a constant state of pessimism. It may also hinder your personal life by bringing home negativity to family and friends. It may also lower motivation and passion and lead to decreased engagement and frustration. It may kill your confidence in your professional abilities and self-worth, perhaps holding you back from what you really want to do or other opportunities. I had a lot of checks on this list. Now, I fully recognize there will be short-term crises in every position and many things that we'd all like to have less of. It's not a matter of avoiding crisis or not rising to meet challenges. By all means, tweak, adjust, adapt where you can, and recognize it is never going to be perfect. But a sustained poor fit is bigger than that and can ultimately lead to burnout. Burnout and its impact on surgeon wellness is an important topic that has increasingly been getting the attention that it deserves. Dr. Tate Shannonfelt and his colleagues surveyed approximately 8,000 American surgeons and found 40% of responding surgeons to be burned out. 30% had symptoms of depression, and over 50% recommended their children not pursue a career in medicine. In CT Surgery, a thoughtful article by Dr. Tom Varghese in STS News highlighted the link between burnout and job satisfaction, referencing data from the 2019 STS Practice Survey led by Dr. John Economides. This survey concluded that more than half the CT surgeons in the US reported experiencing symptoms of burnout. Overall career satisfaction was a rather abysmal 54%. These feelings are also shared by learners. A study in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2019 looked at the incidence of burnout among approximately 7,400 residents. The data revealed 38% of trainees experienced symptoms of burnout at least weekly, which is likely an underestimate of the real percentage. Over 4% also experienced suicidal ideation in the past year. A 2019 survey of cardiothoracic surgery residents by the Thoracic Surgery Directors Association found that nearly 60% of trainees said they had feelings of burnout a few times a month or more frequently. 44% reported feeling depressed, and over 25% stated that given the choice, they would not choose to complete a CT surgery residency again. Needless to say, the well-being of our trainees and surgeons is critical to ensure a healthy workforce as we strive to provide high-quality care. It is these feelings of well-being and satisfaction that help build up our reserves to manage and adapt to crises that inevitably arise. And I can think of no bigger crisis than one we have been living and working with these last 2 years. Going into a pandemic dissatisfied and burned out is a recipe for disaster. If, however, going in we are feeling successful and satisfied, we may build up at least a measure of the resilience necessary to roll this pandemic ball up the hill for the past 2 years. Now, we are just really beginning to see the impact of the pandemic on the healthcare workforce. The research in this area in the months and years to come will no doubt further enlighten us as to the state of well-being with our healthcare community both during COVID and before. As the outgoing president of the STS, I feel compelled to briefly address the concept of finding the right fit in the context of professional organizations. Although active participation in surgical organizations has several advantages, determining which group to join may be challenging. In my case, the STS has been a great fit, and I am grateful that years ago, Dr. Doug Mathieson gave me a little push and challenged me to become more actively involved in the society. Involvement was exactly what I needed in order to derive the satisfaction I was looking for and have felt as a member of the society over the past 20 years. The STS wants to be part of the right formula for you. I hope that you will feel fit with our great society. In conclusion, I hope sharing my personal experiences and thoughts on this topic might, if nothing else, bring a renewed awareness of this idea of fit and its relation to both success and satisfaction. Building a successful and satisfying career requires hard work and focus. It requires self-awareness and self-evaluation. It requires paying attention to the things that bring you satisfaction and listening to your gut when things just don't feel right. Finding fit is worth the effort. Thank you. I would now like to begin to wrap things up with some thank yous. In his 2011 Western Thoracic Surgical Association presidential speech, Dr. Robin Cohen used a line that stuck with me. If you see a turtle on a fence post, you can bet he did not get there by himself. Clearly today I am the turtle and I have received tremendous amount of support and mentorship to get up on this fence post right now. I would like to take the next few minutes to acknowledge some of the people who have lifted me up over the years. As a medical student at Dalhousie University, Dr. Drew Bethune took me under his wing and introduced me to the wonderful specialty of thoracic surgery. A few years later, as a general surgery resident, Dr. Claude Bugden's skillful display of technical excellence further drew me into the specialty. Both of these surgeons went above and beyond in supporting my pursuit of a thoracic surgery education, which ultimately led me to my training in Toronto. It was at the University of Toronto that I met Dr. Mike Johnson, who played a key role in my early development, modeling an attention to detail and caring for thoracic surgery patients that influences my practice to this day. I also have been fortunate to have learned greatly from my longtime mentorship in the Canadian Association of Thoracic Surgeons. I am a proud past president of this 150-member organization, which punches well above its weight in its national and international contributions. Past President Dr. Andrew Seeley's thoughtful approach to problem solving has led me to him for advice on many occasions. And current President Dr. Gail Darling has been encouraging and teaching me since my early days at the University of Toronto. Thank you both for your friendship and guidance. As president of the STS, I've received so much great support. As I mentioned, the staff have been outstanding, as well as the volunteer physician leaders who work hard behind the scenes. These include our workforce and committee chairs listed on this slide, as well as the STS members they partner with in their respective leadership bodies to advance our specialty and society. Our 4 hard-working council chairs have made many contributions this year to advance important initiatives in our organization and effectively support our workforce teams and the STS board. And our more recent past presidents who remain involved and help guide the STS with their wisdom and experience. Hanging out with them is like attending leadership finishing school. I would like to say a special thanks to the STS officers and the board members listed on this slide. The officers are some of the best when it comes to thoughtful and visionary leadership in our specialty. The board is made up of truly inspirational leaders who provide steady, strong support and guidance to our organization. I sincerely appreciate all of your efforts this past year. course, I would not have the time nor the flexibility to participate in organizational leadership without the support of my 5 partners in Calgary, Dr. Edwards, Gelfand, Graham, McFadden, and Sheeman. I truly appreciate their willingness to be there to help me make it all work. I have also been lucky to have the support of a wonderful team, including OR nurses and assistants, nurse practitioners, and trainees. Highlighted here are 2 individuals who have contributed hugely to my ability to get the job done day to day. Dr. Michelle Boss has been assisting me in the OR for over 20 years, and my executive assistant, Ashley Ulmer, has worked with me for 15 years. They both seem able to read my mind and truly make my job both easier and more enjoyable. I have been fortunate to have many extraordinary mentors who have shared their skills and knowledge and have challenged me along the way. I am grateful for the many different ways they have impacted my career. It is worth noting that some have been active mentors most of my career, some I have watched from afar but have learned a great deal from, and others, perhaps unbeknownst to them, have influenced me simply through repeated interactions over the years. I appreciate them all. I would like to acknowledge 3 individuals in particular who have been so important to me and have provided outstanding support over the years. Words cannot express my gratitude to them for believing in me and instilling in me a strong sense of what it means to do the right thing. I'm a better leader, surgeon, and person because of all that I've learned from them. I am very grateful to my friendship with Dr. Mathieson and Dr. Wood, and I know Dr. Pearson is looking down, smiling on me today. I would like to conclude by recognizing my family, beginning with my parents and siblings. We had a lot of fun growing up, and you learn a lot about life being the middle child with 2 sisters. I cannot overemphasize the importance of my parents in my success today. I speak with them every Sunday and have since I left home for medical school at the age of 18. They have been the guiding light, the foundation of my own moral compass and work ethic, and in so many ways, the greatest influence on how I move through life to this day. My wonderful family, my wife Kathy, our son Ben, and our daughter Kate. They make it all worthwhile, and I am so lucky that I get to share my life with them. Kate is smart, funny, and full of energy, a real people person. I admire her ability to connect and her strong work ethic, and I also appreciate that she keeps my operating room music playlist up to date. She is currently completing her final semester of her commerce degree and plans to pursue graduate studies in economics. Our son Ben is a deep thinker, reader, and writer who is enjoying his studies as a first-year law student at the University of Toronto. He is also an outstanding athlete, and we share a love of sport. I admire his perseverance and dedication and how he steps up to challenges without hesitation. When he was much younger, Ben made the statement that someday he wanted to be the Sean 2.0. I can safely say that both he and Kate are the 5.0 versions and beyond. I'm immensely proud of their accomplishments, but mostly of the kind and wonderful people that they are. Lastly, my partner of 25 years, my wife Kathy. I'm immensely grateful for her support and guidance along our journey. She is the mainstay of our family and home. She's intelligent, kind, and caring. I admire her commitment to family and friends, her passion for her roots in Prince Edward Island, and her enthusiasm for taking on new adventures and experiences. Kathy, you make my life complete. Without you, there would be no fit. I look forward to all of our next chapters together. And finally, I want to thank all of you who make up the STS for this wonderful experience as your 57th president. It has been a huge honor and a highlight of my career. Thank you. I hope you can join me in attending the remainder of today's programming. And just a quick reminder that the STS business meeting is scheduled for 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time later today. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.